He rode the horse by day and rode me by night. Out here on the ranch, men don't talk about feelings. They work hard, they sweat, they fight, and they keep their desires buried deep. At least, that's what I thought, until Miguel Rivas walked onto my land. Strong, rugged, and impossible to ignore, he was supposed to be just my capataz. But one night, when the heat between us finally exploded, I realized some things can't be tamed. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more passionate and thrilling stories like this to you. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the vast expanse of the ranch. The scent of dry earth and fresh hay filled the air, mixing with the distant sound of horses' hooves and the steady hammering of the men working near the stables. I had lived here my whole life. Carter Ranch was my legacy, my burden, and my kingdom. It was everything my father had built, and now it was mine to run. I knew every inch of this land, every twist in the dirt roads, every stubborn horse that needed breaking. But there was one thing on my land I couldn't control. Miguel Rivas. He arrived 3 years ago, looking for work after bouncing from ranch to ranch. From the moment I met him, I knew he wasn't like the other men. He didn't just follow orders, he challenged them. He wasn't just strong, he carried an untamed fire inside him, the kind that made people either respect him or fear him. I respected him, and that was the damn problem, because respect wasn't the only thing I felt when I looked at Miguel. I sat on the wooden fence, watching as he mounted one of the wildest stallions on the ranch. The beast bucked and twisted beneath him, but Miguel moved with it, muscles taut, thighs gripping the horse's sides like he was made to be there. The other ranch hands watched, murmuring in approval. But me? I could barely breathe. Because watching Miguel ride was dangerous for me. Not just because he was damn good at it, but because all I could think about was what else those hands could grip, what else those legs could hold down. I clenched my jaw, forcing the thoughts away. Not here, not now, not ever. Miguel finally got the stallion under control, slowing its frantic movements, his body moving fluidly with each motion. He patted the horse's neck, murmuring something low in Spanish before jumping off in one smooth motion. He turned, and his dark eyes landed on me. Fuck. There was something about the way he looked at me that made my stomach tighten, like he knew, like he could see straight through me, past my cold, controlled exterior, into the part of me that I spent years burying beneath hard work and expectations. He smirked, wiping the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "That one's got fight in him," he said, his deep voice sending something sharp down my spine. I swallowed hard and jumped down from the fence, forcing my face into a mask of indifference. "So do you." Miguel let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "You say that like it's a bad thing." I should have walked away. I should have gone back to the house, buried myself in paperwork, done anything other than stand there like a fool fighting against something I knew damn well was already winning. But I didn't move. Because no matter how much I tried to ignore it, the fire between us was already burning. And soon, I knew there'd be no stopping it. That night, the ranch was quiet. The only sounds were the occasional whinny of a horse and the distant chirping of crickets, stretching across the open fields. The air was thick with heat, the kind that stuck to your skin and made it impossible to sleep. I sat on the porch of the ranch house, a whiskey bottle resting on the wooden railing beside me. I should have gone to bed. I should have done a lot of things. Instead, I was waiting. I didn't know for what exactly. Maybe for the thoughts in my head to settle, maybe for the heat between my ribs to cool down, or maybe for him. As if on cue, footsteps crunched on the dirt behind me. I already knew who it was before I turned around. Miguel. He walked toward me with an easy confidence, like he belonged here, like he knew damn well he was the only thing I couldn't control on this land. He wasn't wearing his usual denim jacket, just a thin white tank top that clung to his chest, dirt still smeared along his forearms from the day's work. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on me. "You always drink alone?" His voice was low, steady, like he was testing the waters. I picked up the whiskey bottle and took a slow sip before answering. "Helps me think." Miguel let out a quiet chuckle. "That why you've been staring off into nothing all night?" I didn't answer, because he wasn't wrong. He sighed and leaned against the railing beside me, his shoulder a little too close to mine, his body radiating heat. I could smell him. Sweat, leather, something earthy and undeniably him, and it was driving me insane. "You ever wonder what you're waiting for, boss?" His voice was quiet, like he already knew the answer. I clenched my jaw. "Don't call me that." He smirked, and damn it, he knew exactly what he was doing. "Why not? That's what you are, ain't it?" I turned to him, finally looking him in the eyes, and something passed between us. Something thick and heavy. I could walk away. I could shut this down. But instead, I stayed. And so did he. And in that moment, we both knew. Tonight, something was going to break. The air between us crackled like a dry summer storm waiting to break. Miguel didn't move. Neither did I. But something in the air shifted, something that had been simmering for too long, dangerously close to boiling over. His smirk faded, replaced by something darker, something unreadable. "You gonna keep pretending, Ethan?" I swallowed hard. Pretending what? His eyes flickered to my mouth before meeting my gaze again. He knew. Damn him, he knew. I let out a slow breath, gripping the whiskey bottle in my hand like it was the only thing keeping me steady. "You don't know what you're talking about." Miguel chuckled, low, rough, like he wasn't buying a single word. "I think we both know that's a lie." Silence stretched between us, thick and unbearable. Then, before I could think, before I could stop myself, I moved. I grabbed him by the front of his shirt and pulled him to me, my mouth crashing against his like I had been starving for this moment for years. Miguel didn't hesitate. His hands found my waist, rough and demanding, his body pressing into mine like we had already crossed this line 1,000 times before. But we hadn't. Not until now. I groaned into the kiss, heat surging through my veins. His lips were firm, desperate, like he had been waiting just as long as I had. I should have stopped. I should have pulled away. But instead, I let him take control, let him push me back against the wooden railing, let myself want this. The night air was thick with heat, but it wasn't just from the summer, it was from us. And for the first time in my life, I didn't fight it. Miguel's body was hot, solid, pressing against mine like he had something to prove. Maybe he did. Maybe we both did. The moment our lips met, everything else faded. The ranch, the expectations, the weight of every unspoken word we had swallowed over the years. All that was left was this. Him. Us. Miguel wasn't gentle. He wasn't careful. He kissed me like he was claiming something, like he had been waiting just as long as I had, and now that we were here, he wasn't about to let me run. His hands moved roughly over my body, fingers digging into my waist, my back, like he needed to feel every inch of me, needed to remind himself this was real. I let him, because I needed it too. I fisted his shirt, yanking him closer, biting at his bottom lip before pushing him back against the porch railing. The wood creaked under the weight of us, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. Miguel let out a low, breathless laugh against my mouth. Guess you're done pretending, huh? I exhaled, my forehead resting against his. Shut up. He grinned, but there was a hunger in his eyes, something raw and undeniably real. Make me. So I did. I kissed him again, harder this time, my hands sliding up under his shirt, feeling the ridges of his muscles, the heat of his skin. He groaned into my mouth, his grip tightening on my waist. I didn't know how long we stood there, tangled together, burning up in the thick summer air. But the moment I felt Miguel's hands slide lower, I knew we weren't stopping here. Not tonight. I grabbed his wrist, leading him inside. Miguel followed without hesitation. The door shut behind us with a soft click, sealing us inside the house, sealing us inside whatever the hell this was, and I knew tonight would change everything. The door clicked shut, and suddenly the only thing I could hear was our breathing, heavy, uneven, filled with something we had both ignored for too long. Miguel stood there, chest rising and falling, his dark eyes locked on me, filled with something dangerous, something unstoppable. I should have been thinking about what this meant, what would happen after tonight. But I wasn't. I couldn't, because right now Miguel was here, in my house, in my space. And I was done pretending. I grabbed his shirt again, pulling him to me, crashing our mouths together like I needed him to know exactly what he did to me. He didn't hesitate. His hands slid down my back, gripping me tight, taking what he wanted. I let him. Hell, I wanted him to. He backed me up until my legs hit the wooden dining table, but we didn't stop. His lips moved roughly against mine, demanding, desperate, tasting like sweat and whiskey and pure heat. Then, suddenly, he pulled away. I barely had time to react before he grabbed my shirt, lifting it over my head in one smooth motion. His eyes roamed over my body, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely exposed. But instead of looking away, Miguel smirked. "Damn, Ethan," he murmured, voice low and wrecked. I clenched my jaw. "You gonna talk all night, or?" He cut me off with another kiss, harder this time, his hands roaming over my skin like he was memorizing me. I groaned against his mouth, grabbing the back of his neck, pulling him closer, until there was nothing left between us. No more space. No more doubt. Just us. Miguel pushed me back onto the table, climbing over me, taking control. And I let him. I let him. Because tonight, I wasn't the boss. Tonight, I was his. The morning sun spilled through the windows, casting a golden glow over the wooden floorboards. The ranch was waking up, horses neighing in the distance, the faint murmur of ranch hands starting their work. But inside this room, everything was still. Miguel lay beside me, his bare chest rising and falling slowly, his body half covered by the tangled sheets. He looked at ease, like a man who had finally stopped running. Unlike me. I sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through my hair, my mind racing. Last night had been inevitable. Every stolen glance, every challenge, every moment we had pushed and pulled at each other had led to this. And now, there was no going back. I felt the bed shift behind me, the weight of Miguel's gaze heavy on my back. "You gonna keep pretending that didn't happen?" His voice was rough from sleep, but still laced with that same damn confidence. I exhaled sharply. "I don't know what happens now." Miguel was quiet for a moment. Then I felt his hand slide over my back, slow, deliberate. "You're the boss, remember?" His fingers traced along my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. I turned to him, finally meeting his gaze. And for the first time, I didn't see defiance. I saw understanding, want, something deeper than I was ready to name. But was I ready for this? For him? Miguel smirked like he already knew the answer. Guess we'll find out. And just like that, everything changed. The weight of last night still lingered in the air, thick and undeniable. Miguel lay back against the pillows, watching me with that damn smirk, like he already knew I was overthinking, like he knew I was about to run before I even had the chance to stand. I exhaled, standing up, pulling on my jeans, my movements too sharp, too stiff. I could feel his eyes on me, waiting, challenging. You regretting it already? He asked, his voice rough from sleep but still carrying that edge of confidence. I didn't look at him. I don't have time for this. Miguel chuckled, the sound deep, knowing. Yeah, keep telling yourself that. I turned, eyes narrowing. You think this is a joke? He sat up, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze sharp. Nah, I think you're scared. My jaw clenched. Of what? Miguel stood up slowly, closing the space between us. He was still shirtless, his skin tanned from days under the sun, his body strong, solid, familiar in a way I didn't want to admit. But it was his eyes that got me, the way they searched mine, like he could see right through all my excuses, all my walls. You know what? He murmured. I didn't move, didn't breathe, because he was right. And that scared the hell out of me. I stepped back, shaking my head. This can't happen again. Miguel smirked, tilting his head. Whatever you say, boss. But we both knew the truth. This wasn't over. Not even close. I stepped outside, the morning air cool against my skin, but it did nothing to settle the heat still burning inside me. The ranch was already alive, men saddling up, preparing for another long day under the sun. I needed to focus. I needed to push last night out of my damn head. But then, Miguel walked out behind me. He didn't rush. He didn't avoid me. He acted like nothing had changed. And maybe that's what pissed me off the most. I grabbed my hat off the porch railing and jammed it onto my head, forcing my face into something unreadable. Get the horses ready, I ordered, my voice flat, controlled. We're checking the north fence after breakfast. Miguel nodded like I hadn't just spent the night beneath him, like he hadn't made me lose every ounce of control I prided myself on. Sure thing, boss, he said, voice steady, even amused. I turned, walking toward the barn, but I could feel his damn eyes on me. He was pushing me, waiting for me to crack. And he knew I would. The morning passed in a blur of hard labor and silence. I worked the men harder than usual, knowing damn well it had nothing to do with them and everything to do with Miguel standing just a few feet away, watching, waiting. By midday, we were near the riverbed, fixing a section of fence that had come loose in last night's storm. I wiped the sweat from my brow, breathing deep. I needed space. I stepped away, walking toward the tree line, needing a break from his presence, from the way my body still reacted to him. But I wasn't alone for long. Footsteps, steady, unhurried. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. You keep working us this hard, boss, Miguel said, voice low and amused. You're gonna have a rebellion on your hands. I clenched my jaw, my back still to him. Get back to work. He didn't move. You running from something, Ethan? I turned sharply, anger sparking in my chest. I said get back to work. Miguel took a step closer, his dark eyes locking onto mine. That what last night was? Just something to forget? I swallowed hard. It was a mistake. His jaw twitched. Bullshit. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Charged. I should have walked away. Should have ended it right there. But Miguel wasn't letting me go that easy. He took another step, his voice quieter now, rougher. Tell me you didn't want it, he murmured. Tell me you don't still want it. My fists clenched at my sides. Doesn't matter what I want. Miguel's eyes darkened, his body close now, too damn close. That why you can't even look at me? I forced myself to meet his gaze. And fuck. Everything I had been trying to bury, trying to ignore, was there. Right in his eyes. Right between us, burning like a damn wildfire. Miguel smirked. Thought so. I hated him. I hated him for knowing me so damn well. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him forward, my voice barely above a growl. You keep pushing me, Miguel. You're gonna get burned. His breath hitched, but he didn't pull away. Maybe I like the fire. And then I lost it. I crashed my mouth against his, gripping him like he was the only damn thing keeping me standing. Miguel didn't hesitate. He grabbed the back of my neck, deepening the kiss, taking control like he had last night. Like he knew damn well I would let him. I pressed him against the rough bark of a tree, pinning him there, every inch of my body screaming for him. This wasn't soft or careful. This was messy, raw, a fight neither of us wanted to win. His hands slid under my shirt, nails scraping against my skin, pulling a groan from deep in my chest. This wasn't supposed to happen again. But it had, and God help me, it wouldn't be the last time. The second my lips crashed against his, I knew it was over. All the weeks, months, years of pretending, of holding back, of acting like I didn't want this, had led to this moment. And now I was done fighting it. Miguel's hands were everywhere, gripping my waist, sliding up my back, pulling me against him like he wanted to erase the space between us completely. I let him. Hell, I needed him to. The rough bark of the tree scraped against my hands as I pressed him harder against it, my body covering his, my breath coming fast and uneven. You're dangerous, I muttered against his mouth. Miguel smirked, his fingers gripping the back of my neck, holding me there like he had no intention of letting me go. And you like it. I growled low in my throat, pulling away just enough to look at him. And damn it, that was a mistake. Because his dark eyes weren't teasing anymore. They were filled with something deeper, a challenge, a dare, a truth we had both been running from. I exhaled sharply, resting my forehead against his. This can't happen again, I said, voice rough. Miguel let out a breathless chuckle, his fingers trailing down my arm, slow, deliberate. You said that last time. I clenched my jaw, every muscle in my body tense. Because he was right, and we both knew this wouldn't stop here. Not when every touch, every glance, every second near him made me feel like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't escape. Miguel leaned in, his lips brushing against my jaw, voice low, teasing. So what's it gonna be, boss? I grabbed his wrist before he could pull away, my grip tight, desperate. For a moment, neither of us moved. The only thing between us was the sound of our breathing, the heavy weight of everything left unsaid. Then, finally, I made my choice. I pulled him back in. The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and silent promises. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. Because every time we were alone, every time our eyes met across the ranch, we both knew this thing between us wasn't stopping. It was reckless. It was dangerous. And it was inevitable. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the fields, Miguel found me in the barn. No words, no hesitation, just him, pressing me against the stall door, his breath hot against my neck. You still think this is a mistake? He murmured. I should have said yes. Instead, I pulled him closer. The last time it happened, we didn't even bother pretending anymore. Miguel stood at my door late at night, sweat on his skin from a long day's work, eyes dark with something we both craved. I stepped aside, letting him in. He smirked. "Guess you finally stopped running." I grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him into the room. Because I wasn't running anymore. Not from him, not from this, not from what we both knew was real.